in the heart of London.
Amid the wealth and prestige of Knightsbridge, a district known for its luxury stores, diplomatic residences, and the quiet confidence of old money, a man named
Valerio Viccei arrived with a dream.
But his dream wasn't of legitimacy or business or even belonging.
It was of power, adrenaline, and an endless pursuit of pleasure. In the summer of 1987, he would orchestrate one of the boldest, most glamorous, and most devastating robberies Britain had ever seen.
It was a story that began, like many great crimes, not in desperation but in desire.
Born in Italy in 1955, Valerio Viccei came from a comfortable, middle-class family.
By his 20s, he was already leading a double life: the charming, intelligent son who could speak elegantly at dinner parties, and the thrill-seeking outlaw who couldn't resist the law of the forbidden.
He loved fast cars, expensive suits, and beautiful women, but most of all, he loved risk. To him, danger was an art form, something to be danced with, not avoided.
By the early 1980s, Viccei had already committed more than 50 armed robberies in Italy.
He was a master of disguise,
fluent in the language of audacity. He'd walk into banks as if he owned them, calm and courteous, his weapon often concealed beneath an impeccable Armani jacket.
The Italian authorities knew his name well, and when the law closed in, he fled, setting his sights on the glittering heart of the United Kingdom.
When Viccei arrived in London, he found a city in flux. It was the Thatcher era, a time of booming wealth,
deregulated banks, and growing inequality.
Money moved fast and often quietly, flowing through private vaults and exclusive financial institutions that promised both security and secrecy. One such place was the Knightsbridge Safe Deposit Centre.
Located on Sloane Street, a prestigious establishment where London's elite, including businessmen, diplomats, and celebrities,
stored their most valuable possessions. Behind its polished facade, the centre housed hundreds of safe deposit boxes, each sealed, private, and insured for millions.
To the clientele,
it represented peace of mind. To Viccei, it represented temptation incarnate.
And so began the planning of the Knightsbridge Security Deposit Robbery.
Viccei, ever the strategist, understood that brute force alone would never suffice.
The bank's systems, alarms, and procedures were designed to withstand external attacks. The solution, he realized, was to gain entry from within.
To do that, he needed an insider.
He found his opening in Parvez Latif, the center's manager.
Latif was a well-educated man from Pakistan
who had fallen into debt and desperation. Viccei approached him not as a criminal, but as a friend. Over time, through persuasion, flattery,
and likely promises of wealth beyond imagination,
Viccei turned Latif into his inside man. Together, they began to orchestrate the plan, methodical,
clinical, and audacious. The date was set, July 12, 1987. That Sunday afternoon, while much of London enjoyed the calm of a summer weekend,
Viccei and his team of accomplices gathered their equipment, weapons,
cutting tools and bags for the loot. Dressed in fine suits and disguises,
they entered the Knightsbridge Safe Deposit Centre during business hours.
They began as customers, calm, polite, routine.
They requested to access their safe deposit boxes, and Latif, the manager, personally escorted them into the secure vault area.
Once inside, the transformation began.
In an instant, the civility evaporated.
Weapons were drawn. Staff and customers were ordered to the floor.
Viccei, with his usual poise, took command. There was no chaos, no shouting, only firm, controlled instructions. The security systems were disabled,
the phones disconnected, and the building sealed.
For the next several hours, the team worked meticulously, breaking open safe deposit boxes one by one. The sound of drilling and metal on metal echoed
faintly through the marble corridors.
Inside the boxes lay millions cash,
jewelry, precious metals, bearer bonds, and, as with so many secret vaults,
items of delicate personal nature that no owner would ever want exposed.
By the time they were finished,
they had looted over £60 million, equivalent to nearly
£200 million today.
It was one of the largest bank-related robberies in British history.
When they finally departed that night,
they left behind a scene that stunned even the most hardened investigators.
Over 100 boxes had been ransacked. The air was thick with the smell of burned metal and oil.
The vault, once a symbol of untouchable wealth, now lay desecrated.
The police were called the following morning. Detectives from Scotland Yard's
Flying Squad, the same elite unit that had chased the baker.
Street burglars over a decade earlier arrived to assess the scene.
They found no forced entry. The alarm had never been triggered. Whoever had done this knew the system intimately.
It was an inside job.
For weeks, investigators scoured for clues. The crime had been executed with surgical precision, and the culprits had covered their tracks well. But every criminal, no matter how brilliant, leaves something behind: a trace of arrogance, a misstep, or a fingerprint. In this case, it was a single fingerprint lifted from a safety deposit box lid.
When it was run through police databases,
it matched the record of none other than Valerio Viccei,
already wanted in Italy for multiple armed robberies.
From that moment, the chase was on.
Scotland Yard, working with Interpol, launched an international operation to track him down.
But Viccei was not the kind of man to disappear quietly.
Even as he fled London, he continued to live lavishly, throwing parties, buying expensive cars, and flaunting his charm.
Investigators traced him to several luxury flats and vehicles, registered under aliases.
Eventually, they discovered that Viccei had shipped his beloved Ferrari Testarossa to the UK from Italy, a bright red
symbol of his vanity and recklessness. It was that Ferrari that led to his downfall.
On August 12, 1987,
just 1 month after the robbery,
police officers from the Flying Squad set up a sting operation.
Viccei, still in London,
had arranged to retrieve documents from his car. When he arrived, officers surrounded him. After a brief struggle, he was arrested.
Inside his possession and linked storage locations,
detectives recovered large amounts of cash, jewelry,
and evidence tying him directly to the Knightsbridge crime. At first, Viccei denied everything,
but eventually, in his typically flamboyant manner,
he admitted his role not with shame, but with pride.
He saw himself not as a criminal, but as an artist of the underworld.
In interviews, he spoke of the robbery as a masterpiece of planning and courage. "I robbed banks," he once said, "because I enjoy it.
I love the feeling of being alive." It was arrogance, not confession. To him, prison was an intermission, not a punishment. His trial began in 1989 at the Old Bailey.
The courtroom was packed with journalists, curious onlookers, and even admirers who saw him as a modern-day outlaw, handsome,
charming, and defiant.
The evidence was overwhelming.
His fingerprints, his correspondence with Latif,
and his personal items found near the vault left no doubt. He was convicted and sentenced to 22 years in prison. Latif, the manager who betrayed his own institution, received 12 years.
But even behind bars, Viccei remained larger than life.
He corresponded with journalists, continued to charm women, and maintained a certain celebrity status among inmates.
To some, he represented rebellion against the establishment.
To others, he was simply a narcissist who mistook crime for charisma. After serving part of his sentence in Britain,
Viccei was extradited to Italy
in the early 1990s
to face his remaining convictions. Upon release, incredibly, he claimed to have reformed.
He opened a legal consultancy and even worked with charities, but the thrill, as always, called him back. In April 2000,
during what was supposed to be a supervised outing from prison,
Viccei met with associates allegedly to discuss business. Italian police, suspecting he was planning another heist, intervened.
In the chaos that followed, Viccei attempted to flee.
Shots were fired. He was hit multiple times.
At the age of 45,
the man who had once stolen millions died on the streets, gun in hand,
smile on his face.
The Knightsbridge Security Deposit Robbery remains a landmark in criminal history. It wasn't just the scale of the theft, it was the audacity.
This operation demonstrated how wealth, charm,
and corruption could intersect so seamlessly in a single act.
But the story also revealed
something deeper about the human psyche.
That desire for risk, that hunger for significance, that illusion of control.
For the victims, it was devastation.
Many lost not just money, but heirlooms,
private documents, and irreplaceable treasures. For the city, it was a wound to its reputation.
A reminder that even the most secure vault could be breached from within. And for Viccei, it was the ultimate performance.
To the end, he lived as he died, elegantly reckless, flamboyant, and completely untamed. Even the officers who captured him couldn't help but acknowledge his charisma. One Scotland Yard detective later described him as the most
charming villain you could ever arrest. His legacy lives on in films, books, and documentaries that romanticize
the crime, though the truth is far grittier than the legend. The Knightsbridge robbery wasn't a glamorous caper. It was a meticulously engineered violation, executed by a man who loved himself more than his victims.
And who believed, until his final breath, that he could outsmart the world. Yet, in the end, the world caught up with him.
The vault that was meant to be impenetrable was breached.
The thief who thought himself untouchable was gunned down.
The line between genius and folly blurred, as it always does in the greatest crimes of history. Today, the building that once housed the Knightsbridge Safe Deposit
Centre stands as just another quiet piece of London real estate.
The vaults are gone, the walls repainted, the secrets buried beneath decades of redevelopment.
But for those who remember that summer of 1987,
the echoes remain: the thud of drills,
the scent of metal and oil,
and the image of a man in an immaculate suit, smiling as he walked into infamy.
Thank you for watching Crimes Through Time. If this story fascinated you, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more
journeys into history's darkest mysteries.
And tell us in the comments, do you think Adelaide Bartlett was truly innocent, or did she get away with the perfect crime? We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, stay curious, stay safe,